Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a topic that is quite literally the soul of corporate survival: internal auditor independence. Now, I know you might hear the word audit and instantly picture dusty ledgers and endless compliance checklists, but let's completely erase that image right now. We are talking about the ultimate safeguard for risk control and the absolute bedrock of stakeholder trust in any modern organization. To really grasp the stakes here, think about it like this. Imagine you're watching a massive, high-stakes football match, but the referee, yeah, they're actually on the payroll of one of the teams playing. It wouldn't matter how skilled or experienced that referee is. Literally nobody, not the opposing team, the fans, or the commentators, would trust a single call they make. That exact vanishing of trust is the dilemma organizations face when their internal auditors don't have true independence. When that independence is compromised, the work quietly but entirely loses its credibility. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. We're going to look at the referee's dilemma, decoding independence, independence versus objectivity, hidden threats, a real-world case study, and wrap up with future safeguards. Section 1. The referee's dilemma: why independence is absolutely crucial. Look, in an era where corporate scandals are practically headline news every other week and regulatory scrutiny is through the roof, an auditor's independence just isn't a nice-to-have anymore. It's a non-negotiable shield. The official definition calls it the freedom from conditions that threaten an auditor's ability to carry out responsibilities in an independent and unbiased manner. Simply put, auditors must be able to do their job objectively, completely free from undue influence or conflicts of interest. Without that freedom, the whole audit function becomes a ceremonial figurehead, totally unable to steer the organization away from massive risks. Moving right along to Section 2, decoding independence. Let's look at the structural backbone. This isn't just some abstract philosophical idea. It's heavily regulated by institutional frameworks. The Institute of Internal Auditors, basically the global voice for the profession, they don't mince words here. Their Attribute Standard 1100 clearly states, internal audit activity must be independent and internal auditors must be objective in performing their work. That is the golden rule right there. It means auditors are obligated to steer the organization away from risks, which is virtually impossible if they're tangled up in corporate politics. But how do you actually guarantee that independence in the real world? Well, you do it through organizational structure. Standard 1110 dictates that the chief audit executive has to report to a level within the organization that actually allows them to fulfill their responsibilities. And this is where we get into that vital split in reporting lines. For maximum objectivity, the chief audit executive should report functionally straight to the board, specifically the audit committee. So the board approves the audit charter, the risk plan, the budget, and even the hiring of the audit head. Meanwhile, administrative reporting for everyday things like HR and daily policies goes to the CEO. This split reporting, it's the literal structural backbone of independence. Which brings us to Section 3, independence versus objectivity. These are two completely distinct pillars. Now, people mix these two up all the time, but this brilliantly illustrates the difference. Independence, that's your freedom from influence, literally where you sit on the company org chart, controlled by reporting lines. But objectivity, that's your unbiased mental attitude. It's your personal judgment and ethics. You could have perfect structural independence because you report directly to the board, but you could still totally lose your objectivity if you develop a cozy, overly friendly relationship with the department you're auditing. You absolutely need both the structural backbone and the psychological mindset. So why go through all this structural gymnastics? Well, the why is actually profound. This setup protects organizational integrity by acting as an incredible early warning system. When independence is intact, alarming incidents surface early. But when it's compromised, issues get sugar-coated, red flags get completely ignored, and problems silently blow up. Plus, it builds massive stakeholder trust. Investors and regulators rely heavily on this. And ultimately, it creates long-term value by protecting the company's reputation and making the whole organization far more resilient. All right, Section 4, hidden threats. Let's talk about how this actually gets compromised. Because let's be real, corporate environments are messy, and threats to this vital independence are constantly lurking just beneath the surface. You've got the obvious ones, sure, like reporting directly to management instead of the board. But then you have much more insidious tactics. Think about management imposing scope limitations, basically taping off sensitive areas so auditors can't do legitimate reviews. Or budget starvation, making sure the audit department literally can't afford enough staff to look deeply into an issue. There's also the familiarity threat, where an auditor reviews the same department for so long they just become blind to its faults. And of course, the quietest threat of all, career concerns. Just that lingering, unspoken fear that blowing the whistle today blows up your promotion tomorrow. Let's look at a concrete example in Section 5, a real-world case study on the value of independence. Ask any veteran auditor, and they'll tell you the absolute hardest part of the job isn't finding the problems, it's reporting those problems when they involve highly influential people. Picture this, a mid-sized organization where an internal auditor finds clear financial misappropriations by a very senior manager. Executive management catches wind and immediately tries to suppress the findings, claiming a public scandal would ruin the company's reputation. The pressure on the auditor is immense. But because this audit function had a direct, uninhibited reporting line to the board's audit committee, the auditor bypassed management entirely and took it straight to the top. The outcome? They dismantled a massive vendor collusion ring, rolled out strict policy improvements, and the cover-up was completely thwarted. All of that was thanks to structural independence. Finally, Section 6, Future Safeguards. How we protect this function moving forward. So, knowing all these threats and the immense value at stake, how do we actually protect this going forward? First off, you absolutely have to mandate strong, functional reporting straight to the board or audit committee. Also, the audit charter, the document that actually gives the auditor their power, must be approved by the board, not the CEO. You also need to enforce the rotation of audit assignments to kill off that familiarity threat we talked about earlier. Crucially, you have to establish ironclad whistleblower policies to protect auditors from retaliation. And finally, holding private, direct sessions between the chief audit executive and the board, with zero management in the room, is a global best practice you simply cannot skip. And looking ahead, the role of internal auditors is rapidly evolving with artificial intelligence, data analytics, and continuous automated auditing tools. But here is the kicker. Even with the most advanced AI in the world churning through mountains of data, independence is still utterly indispensable. Actually, scratch that, it might be more important than ever, because automation inevitably triggers the need for nuanced human judgment to interpret those results, and human judgment inherently demands independence to be trusted. Technology might empower the auditor, but independence empowers the truth. To wrap all this up, there's this incredibly powerful metaphor from our source material that just hits the nail on the head. An internal audit function without independence is like a vehicle with faulty brakes or without brakes. Think about that for a second. It poses massive, potentially fatal risks to the organization. A truly independent auditor acts as those essential, fully functioning brakes on corporate risk, strengthening governance, protecting value, and building unshakable trust. So I'll leave you with this final provocative thought. How does your organization safeguard its auditor independence? Are the brakes on your corporate vehicle actually working, or are there hidden conflicts just waiting to cause a massive crash? If you found this explainer eye-opening, take these insights back to your colleagues in governance, finance, or risk roles. Reevaluate your structures, challenge the status quo, and make sure your organization's ultimate safety net is genuinely independent. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and keep asking the tough questions.